Hello.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, how's it going?
I really like the DVDs, man. Some good stuff.
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah. Thanks, I appreciate it. I want to ask you a question. Can I upload them onto the Google?
Yeah. Well, you can do whatever you want with anything I give you.
All right.
Either on the net or in the mail or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have any rights to retain anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 'cause
there is at least one slip of the tongue or error or whatever you want to call it. I mention the statue of the Redeemer.
Yeah.
And I make it sound, I guess, like it was in Argentina.
Yeah, you said Argentina.
Where it's really in Brazil.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
A guy from Brazil called me up to tell me.
Yeah, I thought it was funny, too, when you said you were pretending to be Neanderthalers, and you're like, I am God. Yeah, I'm only up to your third issue, the paper, and I see you really I guess it's true that the pen is mightier than the sword. You really went out to war.
Yeah.
Against those. And
what I went out to do was basically to find the truth. And the truth basically got me into trouble with every group I was talking to. Yeah. One after the other, at one point or the other, had something to do with the problem and the mess we're in. And as soon as I pointed it out to them, they got pissed off.
Yeah, you had one example. Some guy that came to your house and he was with the National Rifle Association.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and he said something, and you like, the guy didn't know about your history, and then he had to leave. You brought up something. But yeah.
Well, and a doctor in B.C. told me, really able to make points here, but you're going to be broke for the rest of your life. What you got to do is come to Jesus, and we'll bring in the money. I said, I've been there, done that. That's not the answer. Bringing in the money. It's probably the biggest problem there is. People don't understand what money is all about.
Yeah, they don't.
Money is a tool, and it has to be used as a tool. It's not a toolkit. It's a tool. Yeah.
I seen with your, like in the beginning, I see, use concepts like, democracy will bring back democracy. I guess you didn't realize that democracy was a problem, too.
No, I was learning.
Yeah, that's how I was too. But
see, in the word democracy, you have two words in there. One is demo, which is really medi, which means the media. And the other half talks about a car, democracy. It brings on things. It's the vehicle to get things across for the system. IRS in there too. So.
I look at I've been looking at some stuff, researching and looking at. I seen one picture. Seen that Leonardo da Vinci picture, and they are I guess you could say connected, next to each other, like that.
At the hip.
Yeah, at the hip, exactly. And I see I was watching, actually, you know what, in a movie, I think about it now, there was a movie, and I think they're making fun of you, man, because I don't know if you ever seen the movie Children of Men.
No.
It's a recent movie, but in the movie, it's like the whole world, nobody can have children anymore, Everybody just goes sterile, and this one lady who can have children. But one of the characters in there that helps this guy, like, 'cause this guy's basically on the run from the law, and one of the characters, he lives on his own. He's always like against the system. This guy, he was like I think he was a poet too, but he had long hair, just like they made sure he had long hair, just like you, white hair.
Yeah.
And the guy looks just like you, man. I don't know. I think they're talking about you, man. They know about you in Hollywood, man.
Oh, every day on the site, when I was doing the site, there were 2 or 3 companies that are registered people in Hollywood that write scripts coming into the site.
Man.
That's where they get their ideas from,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically used to put down people and fabricate things. The original movie they made about me, I think, was Conspiracy Theory.
Yeah, Malchus. Yeah, another guy used to say that too. I remember Jordan Maxwell years ago. I heard him mention that too. That people took.
Jordan Maxwell is not exactly against the system.
Yeah, I know he's the guy. He mentioned in the one video how he laid in the temple, and he said the people who rule this world are divine leaders. Like he lets you know basically that he supports the system, but and I've seen him give him, the handshakes and stuff like that. But.
And he's basically playing a religious hand.
Yeah.
Bringing the money in through Jesus.
Yeah, and another person, and I really analyzed Alan Watt, and I realized what now that I see a bigger picture. Alan Watt, from what I can see with the Sufism, and at its core, me and my friend, we were saying it's Gnosticism, but I think it goes even before Gnosticism. It's like Zoroastrianism. Yeah. How they have like this, because he used to always in his talks, like he would say, "Oh, this is the material world. This is where spirit meets matter. Spirit meets matter," and that right there is like hardcore, like call it Platonism, Zoroastrianism. Now he has like his own religion. Mm-hmm. He has a belief system, and he seems to be against it. He goes all the way out against religion, but he has a religion of his own. Did you know that when you were talking to him? Like,
I was doing most of the talking. There was no two-way conversation. He was just asking me a question, then I guess sitting back and listening, and then on the weekend he would go and say what I said on the radio or something. And people started calling me and telling me that, and I said, it doesn't matter, He talks to other people and they learn something they didn't know. Mm-hmm. So what? Yeah,
cause I think about everything he said. He filtered a lot of what you said out. He just filtered.
Yeah, they take you up the Y, the bottom of the Y, till they get to the fork.
Yep.
And at the fork, they always make the wrong direction their way. Mm-hmm. So obviously, what they're doing is preaching to a converted gang, and then convince them that what they believe that's wrong is right. I have no intention of doing that. Yeah. My view is, I came here to observe, analyze, and conclude. What I observe, analyze, and conclude is what I speak of. Doesn't mean I'll always be right. Mm-hmm. If I learn something later that I didn't know, I might vary an opinion slightly. Mm. But I have too many pieces of the puzzle to be wrong. You would have to throw out the entire world and start over for me to be wrong. Mm-hmm. So, hey, mm-hmm. I speak off the cuff, so sometimes I say Brazil instead of Argentina, or Argentina instead of Brazil.
Yeah.
But that's the price you pay when you're not reading from notes. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another time when I did something, I mentioned Australia instead of Antarctica. Got a guy from Australia calling me and telling me, I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get out the cops and whip me.
Yeah. Now I understand. You gave a better explanation with the Boeing, and Beijing in the video. I understand what you mean now. Like, I have a better understanding. Because you said with the Beijing, they put the I and the J in the being, and then basically Boeing is basically autopilot. Like, I guess the perfect.
They added the old being, the original. But that's the way they're building this new slave.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to what Masons used to say, so mote it be, the priests of Freemasonry. Mm-hmm. What they left out was the so remote it be.
Mm.
And when you understand the concept there, that means they want two-way communications between themselves and the slave in a remote manner. Right now, the slaves they put in, like a female they put into a fixed marriage, arranged marriage, mm-hmm. Has to make a decision to call them and tell them something. They want to know without her calling. They want to know it right away in real time. So they're changing the pons and the medulla that they, in fact, become communicators from within in two directions. So they'll pick up the signal and send it into the main computer, and the main computer just gathers up all the evidence and then sends out warning signals if something is happening that they need to do something about. And one of the things that you have to grasp as well is a lot of the money that they steal back from people. Mm-hmm. They have to pay people in order for them to work, mm-hmm. or they have to give money in interest or investment returns to certain people. But they don't really want to give them the money. They want to basically it go through their hands and then steal it back. Yeah. And one of the ways they have of doing that is gambling. Now, gambling is not simply somebody who goes and sits at a table in Atlantic City and plays cards. Gambling has a lot to do with betting on sports teams. So imagine if you have one team that is 25% stronger mm-hmm. than the other team on any given day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They would win every game. Mm-hmm. But if you can communicate remotely to the individual players and pull on the strings that cause them to feel incompetent mm-hmm. or insecure, mm-hmm. That day, every time they go to make a play, they're not confident in themselves, so there's a delay there. Mm-hmm. Half a second, second and a half is all it takes for the defense to come crashing through over them. So they can change the outcome of professional sporting games, whether they be individuals like in tennis mm-hmm. or team players like in hockey or football or baseball, basketball. And
it's all robots. It's all, they can just do it.
They can win by the spread. They don't have to cause the team to lose the game. Mm-hmm. They can win through the spread.
Mm. So, like boxing fights and stuff. Like, do you think that like those things are like rigged? I have a feeling they're rigged. Like,
well, they're rigged, but it's a lot easier to rig a single person.
Yeah, just to make them feel weak.
But to rig a team activity, I had all kinds of trouble trying to figure out, who's the only person who could rig a team activity if he was doing it directly. Mm-hmm. It's the trainer. Yeah. Say he put something in their water.
Yeah.
Or basically didn't fix them properly, caused them injury, that kind of stuff. He could affect a team. A coach can't go around and whisper in everybody's ear, lose the game today. That would be stupid. But the trainer can make things happen. Now, if you go the extra step and say everybody's got a receiver in their neck, and somebody in the stands is sending out messages, coded messages to individual players, they drop the ball. They take their attention off of the snap or the handoff for a fraction of a second and drop the ball. So you could really make a lot of money in gambling if you could control that, and I suggest they do.
Well,
in those people at least, they pay them a lot of money, but they make them look stupid.
Well, have you ever looked into because I know you don't really stress the chemtrails, but from what I've seen, there's actually a movie called Control Factor. Well, the stuff that they put in the chemtrails, they can basically control moods of populations.
Well, I suspect, that's my own belief, I suspect that chemtrails are a detractor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from exactly how they're doing it. They need to have people looking at possibilities they can't prove. Whereas if the people knew exactly how it was done, it's like magic, sleight of hand. You always have to have this event happening on the side. And I think chemtrails is that.
Yeah, because the whole conspiracy world, I call it, they all talk about it. Because it's so obvious to them.
Yeah.
But
if they're all talking about it and they're all on the media, it's not true.
And they did even talk about it on the media one time, a few times. Yeah. So, oh wow, that makes me think now. I think about it. Oh,
diversion is very important in control. And Alan Watts basically partly diversion.
Yeah. He focuses on
irrelevant.
He does do that. Man, how can you live with yourself though, man?
Why didn't he go on radio and say, "Look, I just come back from India. Had a great trip, was paid for by the Sufis."
Do you know my friend told me? My friend told me one time on the radio station, he was like, "I'm not home right now. I'm in a different location," and that's all he said. He wouldn't elaborate. I think that's his way, just rubbing it, because he gives little clues. He does seem to do that. And I remember one time when I called him, I said, "Hey, it's all what Glen's saying. It's all coming together." And he's like, "Really?" It was almost upsetting him. But we come.
Well,
he's losing the slave.
Affecting his program somewhat.
Oh yeah, it is. That one little slip up. You know how much donations he lost because of that?
I can imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, he's I seen your farm looks pretty. I want to get up there. I can see what you're talking about, all different personalities and experiments you do.
It's fun too.
Yeah.
It's, no pressure. The fence bars us from the crazy world out there.
Yeah.
And I even have trouble going to town once a month. Basically, do the banking, pay the bills, hydro and telephone, that kind of stuff, because I rather be at home. I don't want to waste any time doing stupid things like paying bills, but it has to be done. So.
Yeah. In the video, you said something. I didn't realize that you said that the Neanderthaler, it was basically a group, a sect in Neanderthal that was evolved quicker than the rest of them.
Yeah, in all of the animal structures that are born in the world, it doesn't happen that there's one born and all of a sudden everybody follows. It's all trial and error.
Oh, wow.
One tries, makes part of the way, fails. Another one tries. You know, it's like clan mothers. The one that survived in approximately 115,000 BC, from which everything is descendant, was probably 50,000 years after the first attempt. So they try, but they're not adapted to living under those conditions. So they die, and another attempt makes its way, and another one, and another one. And each one is a minuscule lesson learned by nature. And as the accumulated information grows, then at one stage of the game, poof, one works. You know, and it sticks. And from that you get lions or giraffes or elephants or clan mothers.
Yeah. But you see, like you were basically saying like they knew they could flood places even way back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you live underground and you know science, I mean, you can start volcanoes, you can break land bridges and cause floods into valleys, and that's basically what they did to create the Black Sea behind Turkey there. The Arabian, the Gulf of Arabia, the Gulf of Aqaba. They're all basically land bridges. They break the bridge and the water flows in and destroys what's there and starts over again. So you have to basically suspect that the Garden of Eden, as it's being described in the Bible, is now someplace underwater. Probably in the Gulf of Eden.
Because when you look, I used to think the Garden of Eden, you said that, and you said that, and I was going to look that up. I wrote that down, but I thought the Garden of Eden was just an allegory for just nature or the womb. But then
they always use reality in order to write allegory.
Oh, yeah, because it's always they'll have like, okay, this means this.
A metaphor.
Yeah, they have so many metaphors for one thing. Like I was learning with Kubrick in 2001: A Space Odyssey, when he fought Hal, and that's actually another allegory too for the Odyssey, the Cyclops. But that's just telling me that's the same old allegory for something else.
Sure. Mishal. Hal is hell.
Yeah.
Hell is a place underground where they burn things and recombine them, and it's like the kitchen. And they make
that's why they call it Hell's Kitchen.
A stew. And then they send it back up. And they're short ingredients all the time. There's something they'd like to be able to make, but there's something missing. Then kaboom, a comet comes in and hits the earth. And they go through the material and find these new minerals and bring them back and break them down into their basic components. Now they got a whole 1,000 years of trials to go through, and they test everything out until they find exactly how it can be used.
Yeah. When I was, because when your newspaper came out, I was really, really young. I wasn't even really looking into this stuff, but I showed actually one. I think it was the first one you had. I showed it to people at my job, and they looked at it like, oh, Brian Mulroney, and they all know, I think you're the one that blew the lid on. Like I think you probably like let everybody know that Brian Mulroney was.
He was a crook.
Crook.
The problem is they won't charge him with being as big a crook as he is.
Yeah.
They want to charge him with being a little crook.
Yeah.
You know, $300,000 bribe. Brian Mulroney stole $500 billion.
Oh man.
On behalf of the system.
Oh yeah.
$1 billion a month.
Wow. Yeah, and it was basically like a kickback scheme, and
all kinds of kickback schemes during the period he was there. Mind you, he wasn't the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The first Prime Minister of Canada got arrested for asking $10,000 from CPR, Canadian Pacific Railway, as a kickback. John A. MacDonald. So, I mean, they all do it. That's why they're in politics.
That's the point of it.
Yeah.
And that's
what you really believe they'd work for $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
And them quit jobs where they're making $20 million to go into politics so they can steal more.
Yeah, and what's one other thing they do? You said it was like a water diversion thing that they were doing.
The Grand Canal.
Yeah, all the fresh water, something like that. Yeah. And it was something with Monsanto, you were saying, or ADM.
Yeah, well, they're all involved in the movement of water.
Yeah.
Monsanto is part of that, and Archer Daniels Midland part of that.
Oh.
The name Archer Daniels Midland
Adam
is
red.
Interesting. Not just in the fact that it's the word Adam, but Archer is basically how they do things in an arc. You know, they create a hurricane by sending it up into the clouds and bringing it down where they want, that kind of stuff. And Daniel in the Bible is the guy who never gives up and just keeps on pushing the system forward. And Midland is basically where Chicago is. It's the center, and Kansas, and where their control mechanism functions much better among rural people than it does among city people. City people are too busy. They're like robots running around with their heads cut off.
Yeah.
They can use the rural people to do things for them.
Yeah, I've seen another thing in your paper. I think this is when you first started going, like mentioning like the occult. You mentioned the Phoenix, and I think the Phoenix. You said the Phoenix was also like a name for the Rothschild. Yeah. From what I could see, you said it's like a system too. Yeah.
It's a period in time. And it's 484 years, which if you put the two fours together make 88 side by side. You know. The message about what their project is, 88 is the female male, 484 years is periods in time they have to work with a 32-year period in the middle. 16 years off the end of one and 16 years off the beginning of the next is where they make all their readjustments. So when you're trying to figure out where you are in life, you have to basically work out, are we in a transition period, or are we in the going forward or ending period? All of that is linked to the zodiac.
And you said something about the Sphinx too, and with this, from what I got, I used to think that, I guess on one level it is that the Sphinx is the zodiac, like a whole procession from beginning to end, like the face is the beginning, the tail is the end.
If you look at Africa, where they first created Cro-Magnon, it's 3 mountains in one. Kilimanjaro has 2 peaks in Tanzania and 1 in Kenya. So they always use that 3 together, that trinity.
Yeah,
but over on the side, they always have the headquarters for the priests who are watching. And the Sphinx performs that same function along with the 3 pyramids. 3 pyramids are what gets attention, but the initiation activity and stuff like that went on underneath the Sphinx. You basically enter between the paws of the lion. If you look at the structure of the Sphinx, and you can see along the side of it watermarks, it became obvious to me that that Sphinx was basically a fountain. And it would have water constantly at the base. And it affected the stone structure. But to us, that's not important, because we know what water fountains are, and there are some all over the world now in major cities. But can you imagine what it would be like to desert people come across a place where water was not treasured? It was splashed around. And that basically was the base of the Sphinx. The other thing about the Sphinx is its head is not the original head. You have to remember that when you're making a statue like that, you basically put a pin that sticks out, and then you shove the head on the pin. And somebody changed the head, changed the face of the lion over time. And when Napoleon's armies went into Egypt, they got pissed off that somebody had done that, and they shot a cannon at the face. That's why it's got a broken nose. But a broken nose is also a symbol for somebody who knows something. And you look at a map of the world and look at the shape of the countries, many of them are shaped like faces. If you want to find out where to go, where people know something, find the nose. Go to where the nose is, or the nose is pointing. Syria has a nose. Points in towards Jordan. Jordan, I think, has a nose that points towards Yemen and Saudi Arabia. So those are the things you start looking at. If you look at the states in the U.S., Montana has a nose. So does that other state right next to it, going towards the Pacific. Underneath and beside. There's all kinds of Christian groups there.
Down south, like?
No, up near the Canadian border.
Oh,
Montana and...
Buffalo? No.
Anyways, it's between Montana and Oregon. And both Montana and this other state, I never remember the name of it. have faces that are pointing towards Oregon. It's basically telling you that Oregon is two-faced. And it's true. I mean, Oregon is like three countries in one state. There is a seashore that has a completely different weather system than the mountains that are right behind it. And then behind the mountains is a desert. So you got desert, mountain, and seashore all within about 500 miles. Different groups live in different parts. I think it's one of the major centers for the Salvation Army. Salvation Army is one of the biggest spy organizations.
I've heard too, like places like Walmart, like Target, and stuff like that. They're all like CIA front.
You got to remember that China started the ball rolling. It was India that made it possible, but India didn't want to be the front.
Yeah.
So they made China the front.
And
today, China has most of the financial reserves in the world. Something like $7 or $8 trillion in cash, while they have a debt owed to them from the U.S. of almost the same amount, $6 or $7 trillion. And the U.S.'s economy is worth 12 or 13 trillion. So they basically have bought half the U.S. Now, how can anybody take seriously the possibility of China and the U.S. fighting? One owns the other. One manufactures the junk that goes to Walmart to be sold to Americans. And if the Americans aren't buying it, nobody's making anything in China. So they have a mutual interest in keeping each other alive.
Oh yeah, in China, they're actually like building like estates for like the elite to go to and live there.
They've just built a railway. Well, it was Canadians who went over and built the railway for them from Beijing to Tibet. Now, why? Why would they want a railway? It takes something like 2 days to travel diagonally across China to get to Tibet.
Because that's one of the controlling. Yeah,
it's probably the basement, the vault, where everything is kept. Has to be in the mountains so that you can have a vault underneath. The argument between the Chinese government and the Dalai Lama is just bullshit. They're on the same team.
Oh yeah. I was reading this Buddhism thing. I don't know if you ever heard of there's a really important figure. He basically killed and slaughtered and took over everybody around and then turned everybody to Buddhist. His name was A. Shaka.
Yeah.
And he had a secret society he founded. Me and my friend told me about this. It's called the 9 Unknown Men.
Sacker is a name that is well known. It's one of the people who came back from Iran after the raid on Israel in 586 BC. The Sacker family basically was one of the leading families of Israel at the time, Judeans rather than Jewish. And today on BBC, the guy that does most of the prying interviews, like 60 Minutes does on TV in the U.S., his name is Sacker. There's a continuity. you read the Bible at that period in time, you'll find all the names of the important families of the day. And they come down through history.
What Bible do you use? It doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't matter. Yeah. The differences between the Bibles are so minuscule.
Just for the different sects and different cults.
The totality is all that matters.
Okay.
You're looking for generalities. You're not looking for anything. Allegory and symbolism. So. Yeah,
that's interesting too. I've researched a little bit, like with the Hebrew letterman structure and everything. And you said that, like in the video, you said that not Americans, but people, I guess, in the West or today, they have a hard time, like, accepting that, like, something like 60,000 years is a long time.
Yeah.
They don't see it like that. And that reminded me, when I was looking up with the Hebrew, this person mentioned that people in the West, we look at it as beginning to end. Alpha and Omega, it's like a line. That's how they look at time. But in the East, they look at it as a circle, a cycle.
Yeah, it's a spiraling cycle. It's like they don't come really together. Each revolution is a slightly higher.
Yeah.
But it's like an upside down cone.
Oh, is that thing with Maurice Strong? The whole Helter Skelter thing he has?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. And Maurice Strong, he has like him and his wife. They have this thing.
What the ranch they have in Colorado.
Yeah, and it's like a little spiral thing.
I know they had a spiral there, but that's basically it. He would know. I mean, he's one of the top priests.
Yeah, and you have a book too on him that you sourced in your newspaper that exposes him a little bit. I really wanted to get into that because I always wanted to look into this guy. This guy's a zealot, man. He's really religious, and he's a true believer in that whole.
Yeah, he was born in a little town on the Manitoba, Saskatchewan border.
Mm-hmm.
Dad worked for CPR, same railway that used to pay bribes to the Prime Minister. The first job was with the Hudson's Bay Company, and then he joined CPR, and he got trained in all of this, and in the end, he basically ends up being the guy in charge of the UN. They have to have one guy that's pretending to be in charge, but is like Bill Clinton or George Bush or Obama. He's just a spokesperson.
Yeah.
Doesn't have time to be in charge of anything.
Yeah, that's...
Have behind him the guy who's really in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And usually in politics, the chief of staff to the president or the vice president, one or the other, sometimes a combination of both. In the UN, well, Maurice Strong ran the show. He's the top guy, and whoever happens to be Secretary General is just pretending. You know, Ban Ki-moon.
Yeah, yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Wouldn't be able to run a shoe store.
Yeah.
But they needed a Korean because it was their turn type of thing.
Yeah. I want, with this Buddhism thing, I'm still looking it up. There's so many, like you said in the video too, like they use the dialectic and they form all these subsects, and oh my God, it's just like I know with the
sense of Protestants.
Yeah, because they know when they say like you can never have a ruling group unopposed, so they gotta have. With the whole, I'm looking at this Buddhism with the Buddha. I'm looking at the whole thing with the Bodhi tree and how I know that's like an allegory for something else.
Yeah. Well, this bud's for you.
Oh, Yeah. And that seed.
It's a seed.
Yeah. It started all this whole movement, which was actually like has nothing to do with what he was talking about. No. Yeah.
If you look at the word for media, the original place was called Medes.
Mm-hmm.
MEDES. Well, you don't read the first letter, you work with the second one. So what's left is the word seed.
Mm-hmm.
EDES, Medes. It's seed.
Do you know anything on the Vedas? Because I looked at here, it says
Vedas.
The Vedas. Oh, yeah. It said that it says the Mahavamsa states that the Vedas of Sri Lanka are descendants of a sexual liaison between Prince Vijaya and a she-devil. Now, I know when they talk about the she-devil, they have to be talking about grandmother.
All of the written language, you have to break down the words into their syllables.
Mm. Yeah, I have been doing that. I know what you mean.
And the Vedas is no different. Mm-hmm. So if you read the second letter, EDAS, mm-hmm. an A can be an E. So the word again is seed, same as Medes. It's basically putting into you the concept that is easier for us to understand than it was for thousands of years ago for people to understand, that human beings begin with a seed, in the same way as an oak tree begins with a seed or a pumpkin begins with a seed. You just call it an egg, but it's a seed. It's the same thing. You've got the stuff on the inside, and you've got a shell to protect it from the outside. You put it in the ground, and as it rots, it feeds the inside, and out of that starts the process of building creation out of the DNA that is within that seed. You know, try to imagine, how do you squeeze a pumpkin into a pumpkin seed? Once it comes out, you can't get it out. But each seed holds at least a pumpkin. Same thing with an oak tree that can grow 150 feet up in the air and 10 feet across. How do you put that back into the nut? You do it by waiting for it to create its own seed, and then it starts the process again. The allegory for what ends up being Noah's Ark. How do you preserve the world from a cataclysmic event? Preserve the world by building a seed bank in a place that would not be affected by two things, water or fire. Therefore, usually some places are more susceptible to destruction by water, and other places more susceptible to destruction by fire. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to build something, you try to find a place that is not going to be affected by either one of those, and that would be in the ice. So if you're going to store seeds to make human beings, you've got to store them in the ice. That you then start working back in time and looking at the movement of priests out of the Mediterranean. They went up into France, called Gaul at the time, then over to Great Britain and the top northern end, Scotland. From there, you see movement both from the Norwegian side of things and the Scottish side of things, hopscotching islands going all the way up to Iceland, and finally into Greenland. If you understand the geology of Greenland, you will know, number one, it ain't green.
Yeah, you said.
Number two is it's shaped like a bowl. It's a bowl of stone. It has ice all over it. Well, the ice on the outside of the bowl can drift down once it gets hot and become glaciers and icebergs that lead into the ocean. That's the kind of pictures you'll see when people are talking about global warming. But the ice in the bowl itself is a totally different thing. It is almost 2 miles thick. Now, if you work on a farm and you have no electricity, you want ice during the summertime to keep your milk cool, you have to get it during the wintertime. So you go to the pond and you cut out blocks of ice. You bring them to a place near your house. During the summertime, you will have dug a hole. And you take these blocks of ice and you put them in the bottom of the hole, say 15 feet down. Once you've covered the bottom of the hole, you put dirt on it or hay on it, and then you put another layer. And you do that maybe 10 or 15 rows deep. Then when it gets hot during the summertime, you can go outside and clean off some of the straw or dirt and pick up a block of ice in the months of March or April and bring it in and put it in your ice box. But by the time you get to August, there would be no signs of snow anywhere on the outside or ice anywhere. But if you're at least 4 feet underground, which means you're at the third or fourth level of ice, you'll have ice there the same way as you would have in the middle of winter. You go get a block of ice, and that's how you get your ice. So the moral of the story is, if you've got a hole with ice that is 4, 6, 8, 10 feet down, covered with dirt or straw, it doesn't melt. It doesn't get hot enough, long enough on this planet for it to melt. Especially if it's in Greenland, which is not green. So, you know, if you're going to store eggs for the future, that's the place to put them. So you dig a hole into the ice, preferably by starting at the base of the bowl and working your way in, and you build caverns. And in those caverns of ice, put shelving. Then you go around the world collecting eggs out of women. You tell them the time has come for them to sacrifice to their God, and you're going to have a little operation on them, and you do a hysterectomy. Of course, the girl dies, but that doesn't matter. What you care about is the eggs. Then you get a beehive. You take all the honeycombs out, and they all have little slots in there for putting in eggs for the queen to lay her eggs in. Clean all of that out, and you put eggs in there, and then you cover it with a layer of wax so they're in storage, and then you rush them as fast as you can up to the big fridge in Greenland. It's going to be part of the Nordic continent once the moat is built around the world. It's not going to be affected by anything.
Yeah, it was.
And you make more than one. You know, there are a couple of places up there.
It's like I want to ask you, Tom, with these Neanderthals, do you think what's the lifespan of these?
I am not certain any one of them exists any longer. I think that they transferred their knowledge to a central computer. Probably they're joking, laugh at us when they used the term HAL in 2001, A Space Odyssey. But that's basically what they did. They transferred their knowledge to a computer, and the computer is now self-teaching and self-learning. So if there's new stuff like the development of space and stuff like that, which the computer had no knowledge of because all these guys lived either in Africa or underground, there's no chance for them to know how things really were in space. But now they can collect all of that information from NASA and other groups like that around the world and add it to the computer's knowledge, and the computer then uses the totality of what it knows. In other words, those big computers, supercomputers, are not one computer working on one problem at a time. They're subdivided into many sections, and each section is a particular field of knowledge. But they can cross-reference with all the other fields of knowledge. So if you ask it a question, you don't get it from one part of the computer. You get a compilation that comes from anything that may affect the answer in all of the sections of the computer. So I'm not certain they're still alive, to make a long story short. There might be a museum of Neanderthalers or a zoo of Neanderthalers run by the computer, just so he remembers where he came from.
So I remember that was pretty amazing when you said, like when they came out with the computer, it was like more far advanced than the computers we have today all that time.
Absolutely.
It's like, wow.
The computers we have today are modeled on the human body, human brain.
Yeah, exactly, because we are computers.
But theirs is the reverse. The computer that they got were the best of all the brains, not from one human brain, best of all the brains. So if you put a cap with wires leading to the brains of all the 6 billion people on the planet, which is what they're trying to do now, because that's what remote means, that each brain will be communicating with the computer in the center on real time as things occur. And the computer in the middle will gather the information from all the brains at the same time.
And that's what they meant, when they said,
remote.
We are one, but we are legion. Yeah. We are one, something like that. I don't know if you ever seen it. I think it came out in the 90s. It's called Storm of the Century by...
Storm of the Century?
Storm of the Century by...
Storm of the Century, no.
Yeah. And it's like, how this person, his name was an anagram for, legion or many, or whatever. And but in the movie he needed a child to pass on his information, and all the people, he basically scared them. He's like, you have to give me a child or I'm killing everybody. And I guess that's the whole thing, how they used to take children and kidnap them.
Yeah.
In the past. I keep seeing it like
every girl from the day she's born carries all the eggs she's ever going to have in her uterus. You don't have to wait for her to be 12 or 16. Kill them when they're 6 and still get all the eggs.
Yeah.
Priests had no use for girls because girls wanted sex the way to make children, whereas they wanted sex for pleasure. We're not interested in making children the old-fashioned way. They had a better way of making children that was in a lab.
Yeah. Oh, well.
So they brought in girls, took their eggs, and killed them. They brought in boys, turned them into sex slaves, and when they grew out of the age where they were young and virgins, they put them to work in the caves.
Guys, man. Guys are crazy, man. Wow.
That's what you get when you're a psychopath, because you feel unloved. You don't recognize anybody giving you credit for anything.
Because you don't have that part in them. Yeah. Oh, man. And you said that they've only bred the psychopath in the human population and they never bred it out.
I didn't hear the last part.
You said they've only bred it in people. They never bred it out, right?
Yeah, well, they not only did they breed it in, they multiplied its effect.
And originally the psychopaths were like, just like, cause you said in nature, like there's always a small percentage that's...
Yeah, usually it's below 5%.
Yeah, so they turned an abnormality into...
15%.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And think of how easy it is to be a journalist. If on the day they're born, you're given a list of people to watch. On orders, this one will be a mass murderer. He'll enter a classroom and kill 12 people. This one will behead somebody on a bus. And this is on the day they're born. So you, as the media, can prepare a backup file and be there at the appropriate moment. The group that does that is called Gamma Production. And when it happens, you're there, and you report on it, and you make money, because the minute there's breaking news like that, there's a lot of people looking and listening to the media, and the commercials go up in price.
Yeah, that's kind of sick, too. Whenever I hear that, like on the news, that's what people like. It's entertainment. It's entertainment. You know, people. It's like that movie.
It's not happening to them.
Yeah, that's another reason too. See, they understand this. These people, they understand that how to project things outwards, because they actually like they cater to the ego.
Yeah,
they cater to people's ego, and that's why I see that. That's why they have Jerry Springer and everything. Oh, to say, look at them, but don't look at yourself. They don't want you looking at yourself. I read that in the book. Like, even in the cruise ship, like, one of the main objectives of the games that they give people on cruise ship is they cannot have the person to sit and think to themselves. That's like the last thing they want the person to do. It's all about blaming everything, you know. But, yeah, that's why they made the devil. That's why they made God. Yeah. And I see that with people. I was talking to my friend about that, how, you know, I'll speak to, like, religious people. They'll be like, they do something bad. Oh, it's the devil made me do it. And they do something good. Oh, God. It's never them. It's like they're just a puppet.
You never hear somebody say, that son of a bitch, God. He makes my life so difficult.
Yeah.
Killed my mother.
Yeah. I know people who do, like, I was talking to a guy from Hong Kong. I told him I was reading up on, like, Buddhism. He's like, yeah, it's stupid, right? He's like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. He's like, if Jesus was real, he was probably a crazy person back then, and they just, you know.
He would have ignored him.
Yeah. 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 I don't think these people really existed. Like, do you think they existed, like Jesus and Buddha?
I think they're basically a composite of the story they want to put out.
Oh, okay.
If they did exist, they would have put the story out when it was happening.
Yeah, a lot of them, yeah.
Not generations after, when you're sure there's nobody around that remembers.
Yep. They did that with Buddha. Yeah.
The story in the Bible about Jesus was written at least 150 years after the fact. Well, you can't send a message across the room through 20 people on the same day within an hour and get the same answer at the end as you got at the beginning. Yeah. What the hell do people 150 years later remember?
Yeah.
They make it up as they go along, you know. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got their own little twist on things.
Yeah. And it's so clever people wrote those books long ago. And is it the same coding structure, like, say, the Quran? Because you use the Bible a lot, but have you ever... Is it?
The Quran, you got to remember the core at the beginning. An O can be an A. A K can be a C. It's the vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's a AN at the end. It's the new A, the A-frame person, 2-in-1. That's what it's all about. But they're only like the pine tree of that religion. The Baha'i faith is the coniferous tree, the oak and the maple and the elm of that religion. Baha'i is along the way what will eliminate Islam. Islam had a function that's to create suicide bombers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when you see the mind control techniques, when you look at the Islamic mystery religion sects, like there's one guy, they called him the old man. I think it was the old man in the hell. Ismailis, that's what it was. Yeah. And they would tell him, bring him to the mountains and drug him up and tell him, hey, this is heaven, and if you serve whatever, and I guess that's where they get that today.
It's the same pattern throughout every religion. You start up with the fundraisers, you create Protestants. From the Protestants, you create protesters of the Protestants, and all of a sudden up pops a secret society.
Yep. Yeah. I was looking, my friend sent me an email on theosophy, like Madame Blavatsky, and she talks a lot about this stuff, like the inner earth and stuff like that, but they put little spins on it. But they basically tell you, what's going on, I guess.
It's theology, theocracy.
Yeah.
It's basically telling you that the origin is secret and priests are the intermediaries. You don't get to deal with the original, you get to deal with their ambassadors. Those are monks and priests and nuns and all of that. But when you stop and you look at it, you say, hey, these theocracies have all it takes for them to do what they wanted to do on Earth. The nuns could be impregnated and make babies. Tell the world somebody left them at the doorstep.
Yeah.
And then pawn them off onto some family who would raise them. The priestly caste could say, we are special, and only should we intermarry within our own group. I'll send you a woman who will be your guiding light in your life. They would have manufactured a bunch of male, female women, wee men, and send them to be the guy's bride.
Mm.
Then how do you get one woman to be master over all the other women that are there? She's got to do something special. Well, she's got to do things that are not what the other women are doing. So all the other women are doing is they're coming into the bedroom, lying on the bed, parting their legs, saying, okay, I'm ready.
She has to be a wild woman.
When you're done. And then they go back to the harem and have a baby if they're going to have one. But at the same time, the guy that runs the harem is a priest. And he's got this manufactured woman. And he calls her Esther, after Easter, which is modeled on Mary Magdalene, the prostitute.
Yeah, I was reading up on her. The 7 sins, the demons possessed her and all that stuff.
So you send in this woman, and King says, well, what, you're not lying down in bed? I want to, have a little conversation first. You're such a fine fella. While we're talking, why don't you pull down your pants? The king said, oh, I never had anything like this. And she said, well, I can talk to you about the history of the world if you want, or how great they think you are in this other place. And at the same time, I'm going to be playing with you.
So a real woman is just, they're not into it, like they would be more into it for just procreation.
Yeah, because that's what it was for. I mean, it was come on in, spend the night, and go home.
And men, how were men? Men would just, they were basically the same attitude, sort of.
Yeah, they would go in and
it wasn't a pleasure. It wasn't.
Sorry, ma'am, and see you later. I'm going back to play cards with the boys.
There wasn't any pleasure in it?
No, it wasn't designed for that at the beginning. And sex is not fun for women. A penis is a badly designed instrument to bring on orgasm in a woman. It's a perfectly designed vehicle, a vagina, to bring on orgasm in a man. Do it as quickly as possible. And then the priest use all of those natural things to create feelings that people don't feel complete because they can't hold off for 6 hours. The woman doesn't want it for 6 hours, and you're designed to do it and get out. So in comes a woman who decides she doesn't want it, but she's going to make you feel like you've never felt before. It's what they teach Roma from the day they're born, gypsies. You have to be a wild animal in bed. Priests went to Japan and taught the women, the geisha, You cannot just be a wild animal. That's not good enough, because then you only get used at night. You want to be involved all day long. So you got to be able to entertain and speak properly so that the king feels comfortable when he brings you in front of his visitors. But then when you go to the bedroom at night, you got to become a wild animal. So that's why the word wild and mild are the same word, with the first letter flipped.
Well, I heard you mention too. I see it on your website. You said you had you had kids. Like, do you teach them this? They understand this?
Who?
You said you have like kids and stuff.
I have 4 children. Most of the time during the 24 years I was married to the woman who carried 4 children, I was a businessman. 24 hours a day. When we were first married, I had 3 jobs.
Damn, man.
Over a period of time, I opened a copying, duplicating type of operation, which basically was open 24 hours a day. So I was a person of my task, and I would come home at night after having supper in a restaurant with either customers or fellow workers or staff, so that I could learn from them what I didn't know about different things. So the children were basically raised by my wife. I would show up basically on 10 o'clock at night, often having had too much to drink, go to bed. Then on the weekend, in the last few years, we had a place out in the country. I would stop my working week at noon on Friday and return to work at noon on Monday. And the time in between, I was up at the lake while other people went there to take time off. I went up there to plan the building of a village.
Damn, you were a worker bee, man. You really...
So that's all I did.
Oh, man, wow. That, you know what, like, that's how, like, I see these guys are, like, these, I guess call them elite, like, they're just like that. Yeah,
the only problem is I never met a happy person except me. That was the big difference. I don't know what it was in my character, but I enjoyed every minute. And the other people seemed to be more interested in making money than in making things happen. So all their decision-making was around how much of this will end up being mine. And for me, I didn't want anything. I lived the same way as a person of wealth, president of a company, raising $147 million, as I lived when I was a kid in the hallway of a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids. There was no room for me in a bedroom. I slept in the hallway. It was like sleeping at a bus stop.
There's so many people I know who are like that. Like, they'll sit there and make all this money, but it's just the act of just making it is really.
And then they worry about people are going to steal it.
Yeah.
They're not satisfied with having just been idiots about how they earn it. Then they have to worry about having it. Why? They want to keep it so that the IRS at the end will get it.
Yeah, that's why I don't even care. Like, just want to feed myself, really, and you know, like
once you've gone beyond 3 meals a day and 10 suits, what else do you need?
Yeah.
Get me from one place to another.
Yeah.
Preferably time travel if I could, but in the meantime, give me a vehicle, and because I don't want to wait for you to come and drive me. I need to go when I want to go, type of thing.
Yeah, and you see with the money what it does, like, and it's a perfect example when you look at celebrities and look at even the priests or the elite themselves. Like, you see what it turns into, just to deviant things. They just don't know what to do with themselves. Yeah, that's what it turns into.
There's nothing worse than having nothing to do, because you have to hide the fact to everybody that you have nothing to do. And that's a job. It's a job. There's a story about the Vatican, and priest gets the word that Jesus is coming. He's going to be here this afternoon, second coming. He'll be here this afternoon, and he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and he runs in to see the Pope, and he says, "Dear Father," he says, what do we do? What do we do? Jesus is coming. Finally, after thousands of years, he's coming. What do we do? And the Pope looks at him and says, "Look busy." That's it. Look busy. Every bureaucrat I ever met in the government, the first thing they do when they get a promotion is hire somebody to do their job, so they don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Another thing too, you see that with people. I've seen so many people, like they tell me, like, "Oh man, I'm not working anymore, man. I'm going crazy." Like, they can't handle it just not working.
No. We were made to do something. We're task-oriented people, and most of the people who are given a task don't understand that, so they try to get out of doing work. They don't want to do the work that needs to be done, but they want to go to a gym to exercise the body. Hey, if you do the work you have to do, don't have to go to the gym. You're going to be in shape by walking around all day long and doing things. You don't need to artificially go to a golf course to play golf. Do that same activity around where you are doing your task. You can invite people in to help. You can go and help somebody else. Keep busy. That's what keeps you alive and keeps you young. I should know. I've been through it often enough. In any event, my friend,
it's time for you to go.
It's that time again.
All right, Glenn.
Talk to you again.
All right.
Bye for now.